Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant, and welcome to Akulmach. Today, we bring a very different kind of a program. It's sort of a debate, and it's about the platform, especially about the Google, Facebook, Twitter, and different governments are coming out with different types of regulation. There are a lot of hue and cry, a lot of discussion going on the social media. So, to discuss this further, let me invite my friend from UK, Mr. Naval Gund.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Platform news, social media news. CK and I have been talking about this for some considerable time, ever since these platforms have been refusing, in many respects, to tighten up their act and stop proliferating fake news. Get their act in order. They may be free platforms, but frankly, they need to be recognizing that they have a moral and a social responsibility. So, although we've been speaking offline about it, CK, today we're going to speak online, for the record, as they say. So, where are we? India have made some moves, I believe.
Yes, to start my discussion, I would say that India has followed exactly what you and I have been discussing, and especially what you have told me is the right approach, and India has followed that exactly with slight difference. So we'll come to India later, but I think I'll also draw your attention, to what happened in the U.S. election, and this is something very important, and I think we should bring it up here in our discussion. Washington Post came out with a news article on Hunter Biden having some sort of business relationship with China, and this is during the election when the votes are being casted. And Twitter blocked Washington Post for a week. So you can imagine Twitter has become so powerful; they can block Washington Post. They did it, and although between Trump and Biden, as we all know now, the margin of victory is very, very small. It's almost like 50% of this nation, United States, voted for Trump and 50% voted for Biden, with only minuscule vote differential. However, when the news came out that the Twitter blocked the Washington Post, uh, they almost like 13% of the voters said that we wouldn't have voted for Biden, and because of this block strategy of Twitter, there was a 13% swing in favor of Biden, and hence Biden became the president of the United States. So you see that Twitter, kind of a social platform, uh, has the ability to form government, to topple the government, to create a new scenario in a totally different country, to change the narrative. So these social media platforms have become very, very powerful, and they are a force to reckon with. So with this piece of information, which is recent, it has happened, fresh in memory of everyone, we can start our debate.
Well, it's an interesting arena. And of course, do we know it's true? Because all we know is what people are saying. And this is half the problem of a social media platform. Let's take the journey 20 years ago, before social media was even a phrase that we even knew about. You and I would read the newspaper, and we would see the headlines, and we would follow all of the newspaper trends. And the majority of the newspaper headlines would all be saying the same thing. There'd be a slight twist on it, depending upon your politics or your religious your religious requirements, but fundamentally they would all be saying the same thing. You know, if it was the Queen's birthday, they'd say "Happy Birthday, HRH." You know, so they'd all lead with that headline. You know, however, since social media has come into the fore, everyone's a journalist. Information can come from anywhere. We all have smartphones. We can take a picture and we can put it onto Facebook and Twitter or wherever, Instagram, etc., and all of a sudden it's viral. And we've seen that with TikTok. All of these, silly little things people do. As soon as I mentioned TikTok, by the way, I had that stupid ringing tone in my ears. about because everybody in the UK was putting a dance to it and they were doing the same dance. That's the beauty of social media. It makes us more connected. But the problem with it, of course, is it creating a bias? Is it influencing our thought processes in an adverse way? And that is going against tendencies, as you said, affecting presidential elections, affecting nuclear disarmament, affecting global warming, affecting anything where the public are literally voting on and having an opinion. We've seen it in COVID, where people have been said they've done one thing. In fact, they've done the opposite. So we do need to have very responsible, ethically and morally responsible platforms that are working with civilization and not against it. And I think that's where the debate really started some time ago. It got lost in the GDPR arena. You know, my data is my data, it's not your data. And we had all that issue, 18 months ago. It's still live today, by the way. They haven't decided what you really own, what you don't own. But the point is, it's now coming to the fore. It's getting completely out of hand because we have radical behavior on the web. We have, people that are grooming other people. And we see these headline issues. But the problem with a headline issue is it's uncovering some of the deeper problems in society, but not dealing with them. And then we turn to the government to create laws to deal with them. And at the end of the day is the government can only do what the government do. They're not in control of these platforms. The platform owners are. So it's a huge debate. And as you say, it could go anywhere. But now let's look at what because we've heard of what the Australian government have done. And as I said to you the other day, I think they've ducked the issue, frankly. The issue is very clear. Putting in another clause, which is deflecting from the issue, isn't very clear. But the Indian government, I think, have been very clear, haven't they?
Well, Indian government has been very clear, and I will come to that in a bit because I think we need a little longish discussion. But I think you made a very important point that when you are a private entity, you are a businessman, you have to remain non-aligned, and you have started a platform, then you don't take sides. You become neutral. It's a platform where everyone can come and express their opinions, post whatever they want. You mentioned TikTok. You can do silly little things and post it there. Platform is not going to object to it unless it crosses the limits of decency. And all of those terms and conditions are already signed off for when you actually join the platform. Your privacy norms are also signed off for. The use policy is also signed off for. So you already sign off knowingly that you are going to use social media for such and such purpose, which is also, uh, you know, updating the latest happening in and around your area, your opinions, etc. The problem happens when these media platforms takes a side. And for instance, Twitter role is very significantly advertised everywhere now. It's in the news in the presidential election of United States. Recently, there was a law and order situation in India, and the government of India told Twitter to ban 300 Twitter handles which are blue ticked. When they have a blue tick Twitter handle, that means it has been verified account, and it's a reputed person having millions of followers. So usually such accounts will get a blue tick, and these 300 blue ticked account, Indian government asked to stop them. And to do that, Twitter flatly refused. They said it is against our use policies. Now, if you look at the other side, in the Capitol Hill violence, they stopped the handle of 70,000 people, blue ticked handle. So it's a duplicity on their part, because if you honor the democracy of United States, you have to also honor the democracy of India, and you can't take sides because both are large countries. If you look at the population or user base of US, it is not so different from Indian. And when you're launching your platform, obviously with the intention of making money, you want advertisers, you want users, you want people to express their opinion, there has to be traffic, and so on and so forth. So in that scenario you cannot take sides. So I think that is where the problem is, and I think it's a global phenomenon, everyone is affected by it. UK is affected by it, US is affected by it. And you don't even know, Neville, I think between you and me, there may be smaller countries whose government may be toppled by these guys. We don't even hear about the countries like Antigua, the smaller countries, Trinidad and Tobago. God knows what happens there and who controls the government. So if these are the things happening, there is a high time that a law should be brought in to control the free digital media, because the digital media, although it is free, but it has become so powerful that it can influence the democratic movement itself.
You're absolutely right, CK, and you've hijacked my question as usual and gone into a real incredibly in-depth arena of who audits the auditor. And fundamentally, who is God? Who is that upper being that can say this is right and that's wrong? And I think this is the biggest question we need to answer. So in the UK, as you may recall, back in the 1960s and 70s, we had independent watchdogs. Okay, I mean the whole term a watchdog, it's a bit like the building closes overnight and the dogs are out. Security's let loose, and it's a watchdog. And if you enter into that building illegally, the dog is going to come and bite you. The whole phraseology of it is just wrong. I mean, they're not a watchdog. They're an independent authority saying what's right and what's wrong. I mean, if we look at the film industry, there is an independent authority that says this film is given a rating of 12, in which case 12-year-old or over are permitted to go into the cinema and watch it. But if you're sitting at home, it's up to parental discretion who's watching the film on the cinema. And if it says 18 plus, then you realise actually it should be 18 plus. But I know many people of 15 and 14 that are watching these films. So although these are independent discretion, it's up to our own personal discretion. I think this is perhaps where we've started to drift. We've had mission drift, as they call it. And this element of being independent, as you say, you shouldn't have any bias. If you're going to put a free platform in the social arena out there, you really shouldn't be saying, you're right, you're wrong. This is allowed, that isn't allowed, unless it's moral and ethically disallowed. And as you say, all of these platforms have rules. You can't use abusive behavior. You can't put pornographic pictures. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do the other. And as you rightly say, we all sign up to it when we first go on the platform. But do we read it? If there's so many pages. Do you remember the term EULA? Remember the term EULA?
No, frankly, I don't remember.
License agreement. And that we all sign the license agreement when we go on and sign up for anything. Even when you go and sign up for a course, you agree to their terms and conditions. I mean, we have programs that says, please note that this is non-refundable. It is so low, it's such a low cost that we can't refund it because it would cost us more to refund it. But we're doing you a favour. And by the way, you've got 15 days to finish it. and people just skim down. And by the way, these are the headlines at the top. We don't put them in small print. These are right at the very top. You know, you can't click on that first screen without reading these big headlines, you know. And people just scroll down, tick the box, and off they go. Read the fine print, really. As a lawyer and as an accountant, actually, more importantly, I was always told, look at the detail, look at the fine print. Of course, we don't. We just take it for granted that the person providing what they say they're providing is helping us, you know, being true, right, and just. And of course, what we've seen is with all these challenges, Australia and Facebook, in America, with Twitter, in France, etc. And now, as we're going to get onto India, you're not going to wriggle out this one now. We're going to find out what India is doing. But it's now down to the rights of the people. And independent governments really are supposed to be defending and respecting the rights of the people. And that's where we should be. And these platforms need to recognize it's their moral and social responsibility to be ethical, above board, and manage people that are on their site. Manage very loosely. I'm not saying control, but they need to be managing what's there. That's my opinion. You know, I don't believe in everything that's written. I don't believe that a journalist necessarily is giving me the truth. They may be giving me their facts as they found them, and it's up to me to say whether I believe it or not. And as you and I both know, you know, the Earth's flat, isn't it? Of course it's not. We've seen it proved time and time again. But there's still a huge number of people out there that believe that the Earth is flat. So where are they getting their evidence from? What are they seeing that we're not seeing? The likelihood is they're not seeing what we're seeing. Hence, we end up in an argument, not a discussion. But it's a big, big ticket item, and I'm a firm believer of these platforms. They're platforms. That's it. Anyone should be allowed to go on it, but there should be rules about what goes on the platform.
Well, I think for last 10 years, these platforms have been taken as a platform, and a lot of users are there. In fact, that is why the user base is probably so large in some of these cases that they are almost equal to a country. Look at Twitter, 1 billion people. It looks like a sovereign nation by itself. So the problem happens when you actually start taking sides, and that is where we are at the crossroads right now. And each country, each sovereign country, democratically elected government are tackling this issue in a different way. So France and EU are tackling this issue in a different way. Australia is linking with the economy, and India has started looking at in the fashion which you and I feel is the right way, because the freedom of speech and expression should be given. So they have not disturbed that area at all. They have also not disturbed the bilateral trade agreements, because if there is a US company which has entered India and doing business here, they don't want to disturb that also. They have full freedom to do business, and the user base have full freedom to use these platforms. However, so this is the interesting part. What they have done is they have actually put onus back on the social media platforms. And in India, most active is Facebook, Google, which is YouTube, and WhatsApp and Twitter. So these are the large ones. However, there is another segment also which has been put under control, which is Netflix and Prime, because nobody talks about them. There's a whole lot of crap going on those platforms also. So India has tackled the situation once and for all, having OTT platforms and also the social media brought under digital media. And they are saying that the onus is back on you. You need to appoint a compliance officer locally. He can be any national, but he has to be present in India. He has to have knowledge of the Indian laws and what Indian laws permit and does not permit. So there has to be compliance officer. So I'm sure, this compliance officer would be at least 20 to 30 years experience with Indian laws. and all of these guys will have to appoint these compliance officers. They will also have a grievance officer. That means in case I have an issue, for example, my name has been used or misused by somebody else by morphing my picture or taking a part of my video, morphing into something else, using my name. If I come across this kind of a stuff, I should be able to have my grievance recorded with the social media platform, because a lot of these things are also happening. People cut videos and create a different fake scenario, take the information in bits and pieces and create a different narrative, and then multiply it using blue tick tags. So this is the second position that has been created, and third is the legal officer. And all of these three entities will have to be hired within 3 months, and all these three entities will have the legal liability in case government says, hey, I need this from you. I need these people who have created anti-national narrative in the country. You should be able to share their details with us. So this is something new which has happened as of yesterday. There are a whole lot of guidelines which has been said, but above all, they are not dictating any terms. I mean, the best part of the Indian government ruling is they are not saying that, hey, you have to do this. It's not like a dictatorship. They are saying that you have to govern your platform yourself. So if I'm putting a video on YouTube, it is my self governance. That means when I'm actually, it's my own undertaking. So it is basically, they are saying that it's a self governance that you have to do, and you should know the law. And in case you violate the law, we will come behind you.
And isn't that logical? If you create, forget the platforms now. If you're running a business in India or any other country in the world, you abide by the local laws. And if those local laws say anything that you may not like, that's tough, actually, because you're running a business in that local community. And as you quite rightly say, Facebook, Twitter, etc., are so big, so powerful, they could topple a government quite comfortably. And they've known this for some time. So I do believe self-governance is the way forward. Who audits the auditor almost starts to move away into, the lower corridors, because self-governance is really where you should be. Are you an ethical company? Do you, have you got empathy with regards to the laws and rules in that country? And of course, this is where it starts to get really difficult, because now, if you're in India, you need to know Indian laws. If you're in Sri Lanka, you need to know Sri Lankan laws. If you're in Pakistan, you need to know Pakistani laws. If you're in Saudi Arabia, you need to know Saudi Arabian laws. And guess what? Although the nucleus will be pretty consistent, in other words, protecting the rights of the people, as you move away from the nucleus, the extremities, actually, there are really difficult laws that you need to observe by. And typically, these are mostly international laws that we all abide by. And this is where these platforms really have to tighten up. They have to recognize their place in society. They have to recognize that they are the premium news channels in these countries. And under those circumstances, and they're not in control of the news, because the news comes from their content providers, which are people like you and me, the membership. So it's a really complicated issue. You can make it really complicated, but fundamentally, it's quite simple. Be a good human being, abide the laws in the arena that you're currently working in, have a high ethical standing, and everything's fine. And for the vast majority of people, they'll all say, well, why aren't they doing that anyway? And the vast majority of people are doing that because that's the content that they're providing on Facebook. If I put a picture and I tag people that I've got on my following list, I mean, most of them are friends anyway, or business acquaintances. Don't accuse me of spam, because I've already taken that thought process of, I know these people like what I'm saying, I know they'll be on board, and I know they'll repeat it. They'll want to repeat it because it's a good thing to do, sharing good news. But then other people I get tagged with lots of things, and I'm thinking, I don't know this person. That's when it needs to step in, and that's when these platforms become quite difficult. But they're not difficult because the rules and regulations on these platforms, they need to adhere by, and all they need to do is enforce it. Yesterday, interestingly enough, as we finished our conversation, about midday, I went into Facebook and it said, confirm this, confirm that, confirm the other. Is this really you? Did you log on here? So they are already protecting my privacy and making sure people aren't using my name in vain elsewhere. And I get alerts if someone's logged on somewhere else. Now, I have a team around me, and I have people that manipulate my social media platforms accordingly. Why? Because they're part of our organization and I trust them. And if they step out of line, then they get feedback and they don't do it again. So we've got our own internal policy around, what we can say and what we can't say. And I think everyone needs to think of their own moral compass in this arena. What is it? Do you have one? Do you just read all of these EULA agreements, or just scroll to the end and quickly sign it and just say, oh, yeah, it's a free license. I'll just tick it. Because you'd be quite surprised what information people are pulling away from you. I've noticed some of these apps that you get sent from time to time. And if you're inadvertently doing something, you can actually quite easily click on one of these adverts, and all of a sudden, you're into a new app. And it says, do you agree, yes or no? And you think, if you're in a panic, you may say yes. The default, by the way, is always say no, because you can always go back. If you say yes, you can very rarely go back. So the default you need to be being resilient on is saying no. And there's another word, resilience. Governments aren't totally responsible for your resilience. You're responsible for some of your resilience, and we just need to get thicker skinned and be impervious to this grooming tactics or the abuse that people put on these platforms, and just ignore it.
Absolutely, Neville. I think you put it very nicely. I think it's a message to the people who are misusing these platforms. And I think the platforms' legal officers across the world have their hands full now, because now they have to comply to the French laws, they have to comply to Australian arbitration laws, and now they have to appoint the three new entities, three new departments in India to monitor the social media. So I think very soon, US will also put some restrictions on them, because it's also heating up there, and these are the large entities. Anyway, they are not present in China. UK will also follow suit. So I think these social media platforms will have to create something which is generic and promotes ethical use of their platform. I think that is the key message that we are driving here today. So thank you very much for discussing this very important occurrence that we have seen past 1 week or 10 days across France, Australia, and India now. And I think more countries will join in soon. We will keep coming back to the subject, Naval. But for today, thank you so much for finding time and discussing with us.
My pleasure, CK. Have a good day, everybody. And remember, tomorrow's the weekend.
Have a nice weekend, Neville. Catch you on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.